Well, that was not an auspicious start to the stream, but before we get started, I'm going to take a moment to share this on social media. But this week we have some stories out of Raleigh, some stories out of Durham, and one out of Vance County. We don't just focus on the cities, even though there is a bit more newsworthy ongoings here. We want to make sure we don't neglect the rural counties in this area as well. My area of coverage. Okay, so let's get into it. So first of all, we have uh, technically this is news from the week before, but I wanted to wait to report on it before I saw some official statements from the Proud Boys chapters, through channels that I was aware of to make sure this was legitimate and I had all the details. So a week from Saturday, we had Proud Boys marching in Raleigh, and of course the left wing media has conditioned everyone to believe that they are white supremacists, and if you believe that the Proud Boys are white supremacists, then you might be surprised to find out what they were protesting, and they were protesting basically for the Lumbee people. This is a tribe in, I guess, technically southeast North Carolina, around the Robeson County area. And the subject of the protest, which was not organized by the Proud Boys themselves, I believe it was organized by a Lumbee woman. It was about toxic water that the Lumbee people are dealing with in the Lumber River, and it's also for missing and murdered Indigenous women. Now, if you think the Proud Boys are white supremacists, you might be surprised that they would come out. Dozens of them from multiple chapters would come out to support that. But if you're if you're aware a little more deeply of what they believe, it is not too surprising, especially because there are Proud Boys here in North Carolina that are members of the Lumbee tribe, because it is not by any means a white exclusive group. So there's a picture we have here from the Raleigh subreddit. This is disgusting, referring to the Proud Boys protesting for one of our Indian tribes here in North Carolina. And so if you want to learn more about this, you can look up Reba Scott on TikTok. She poses some videos about the protests, and as well as about some of the details of the toxic waste down in the Lumber River. I believe it's the PFAS, to be specific. So you can find her on TikTok at the I believe it's Collard Queen Farm. So you can look her up, and she basically said, hey, so some people are upset that the Proud Boys showed up to this protest, but they showed up. So, not very many other people did. So that it was mostly Proud Boys who were out there, a couple dozen of them. And so I did verify that, these were genuine Proud Boys from the from a Cape Fear Proud Boys channel on Telegram. That is one of the chapters here in North Carolina. So they basically said, hey, there are North Carolina Proud Boys who are members of the Lumbee tribe. The made a post about how the Lumberton wastewater treatment plant is basically related to the leach it. I'm not really an expert. I haven't done a deep dive into what exactly is going on with the Lumber River, but it basically appears that the polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS, it's a bit easier to say, bit of a mouthful, are basically getting into the water down there, and we don't necessarily know what all damage those do to people, but they're known as the forever chemicals because they kind of hang around, and I'm sure nothing good is happening with those in the water. So that definitely seems like a serious issue that people should look into, especially if you're someone who would be affected by that. And they're also the protest. The other purpose of the protest was to bring attention to the I guess missing and murdered Indigenous women. What the Proud Boys said is, our sincerest hope is the new administration puts as much effort into finding these women as the previous administration did finding January 6th protesters. Sometimes solving crimes is just a matter of priority. And so this protest included Proud Boys from looks like 5 different chapters: the East Side Regulators, Catawba Valley, Northwest NC, Rocky River, and Black River chapter. So if anyone was wondering whether these were actual Proud Boys, well, we have a statement from the official channel of one of these chapters. And the Proud Boys, they're definitely a controversial group. You can look up their website, see what they believe in. I think it doesn't quite match how they're often portrayed in the media. Some of their leadership was charged with January 6th. Even Enrique Tarrio, who wasn't actually there on January 6th, but they still levy this conspiracy charges. And so I think since then, they've adopted more of an autonomous lack of structure, without a national organization to give them direction. They're already pretty autonomous, where there are chapters. To be a official Proud Boy, you had to be a member of one of the Proud Boy chapters. So these chapters are still out here operating. My understanding is they're primarily not a political group. They're more of a men's club. So even if you don't see them out on the street, they're still around. But when they are out in the street, you can see them, and they tend to make a bit of a splash. So next up, we have the Mexican flag waving protests have been continuing this week. Last Sunday, there was a protest in Durham, which was organized by the Party for Socialism and Liberation, literal socialists, the hammer and sickle kind of socialists. There's also protests in Raleigh on Capitol Boulevard. And these protests, like the protests we've seen previously in Raleigh over the past couple weeks and that we've seen across the nation, they are waving Mexican flags all over the place. Mexican flags, Mexican flags, Mexican flags. Maybe a couple American flags here and there, but especially if you're organizing with the socialists are not big fans of America, in case anyone has noticed. And so we have a couple banners from these protest pictures that I found here. So at the socialist protests, there's a picture of 2 banners here: money for the people's needs, not the war machine. We fight back. And then another sign, this is in Spanish, where the translation here is, I believe it's the people united will defend the migrant family. So basically the purpose of these protests is to say, we do not believe illegal immigration should be punished. We don't believe our nation should have borders. We should just let anyone in who manages to make it across. So I have some pictures from the protests on Capitol Boulevard and Raleigh as well. Once again, there does actually appear to be a couple American flags here, but still outnumbered by the Mexican flags. So that is that is where it's at. If I were advising these people on how to protest in a way that would most resonate with the American people, I would say probably lay off on Mexican flags. But you do you. If you wanna show people your true allegiance, your allegiance to your gente, your people, I'm not going to stop you. And the next story we have here is a Venezuelan who was arrested in Raleigh, who is suspected of being a member of the Tren de Aragua gang. If you remember, over the last couple months, there was a big story in the national news about this gang seizing control of an apartment building in Aurora, Colorado. And mainstream media was saying it wasn't true, but there's a whole lot of evidence that this was in fact the case. The gang seized the apartment and basically took it over as their fiefdom. You had to pay rent to them, not to the owners of the building. And so this is a newer gang with the presence here in America, but seems to be very serious, involved in crimes. This particular alleged Tren de Aragua member, Ricardo Padilla Granadillo. I'm probably saying that wrong because I speak English. He is a suspect in a mass shooting in Chicago. And apparently when they found him in Raleigh last week, or they put the press release out last week, I don't remember the exact date he was arrested. And they say they found him in a Raleigh residence with 10 other Venezuelans, and I've seen some of the reporting that these 10 Venezuelans they found him with were also illegal aliens who were apprehended. I didn't see that in the ICE press release itself, so maybe there's another statement from ICE that I missed. And ICE has really been going after Trinidad with the recent arrests since Trump came into office. There are 8 Venezuelan illegal aliens charged in relation to human trafficking in Tennessee, and this is just the past week. So these 8 were charged in the past week. Another Venezuelan illegal alien in Indianapolis, who is wanted by Chilean authorities in connection with a kidnapping, and another Venezuelan illegal alien in Texas who had previously been convicted in relation to smuggling weapons out of the U.S. So any one of these, serious cases, serious people, serious gang members we don't want in their country, but it's all over the place, and including here in Raleigh. So this is a problem. We're not technically on the border, but even here in North Carolina, we are affected by what goes on at the border, by the large number of illegal immigrants who have come across the border and have set up shop. And so for the next story, we have a bit different ICE enforcement. There were 3 Indians who were arrested in a North Durham neighborhood, Northgate Park. And so basically, their neighbors were trying to film ICE as they carried out this raid. They were upset that the ICE agents were wearing masks, basically complaining, "Hey, why are you wearing masks?" And what we can see from the leftist response to immigration enforcement is that they would absolutely be doxing Border Patrol agents, doxing or worse. So I completely understand why they wear masks, even if I'm not generally fond of it as a common practice for law enforcement. But we can see from the response, we can see from some of these protests where they're holding up signs referencing the assassination of the healthcare CEO in New York, that I I pray this won't happen, but I am expecting that at some point, probably in the next couple months, there will be assassination attempts on ICE agents who are enforcing immigration laws, and it's more likely to be from leftist Antifa style activists than from the actual illegal aliens that they are rounding up and arresting. So that's kind of the feeling I'm getting from some of this response, and from not just the most extreme of the activists, what they're saying, what they're doing, but also kind of the mainstream, how they will tend to turn. I expect they will turn a blind eye basically to this extreme rhetoric coming out against the law enforcement agents who are just enforcing our immigration laws. So, I'm not looking forward to that, but I expect it to happen. Most likely it won't be in Raleigh or Durham that we'll see that, but possibly somewhere in the United States that could be something that we see in the future. And for our final story here, we have a story from up in Vance County. This is a full article, and once again, I keep forgetting to mention this. I should mention it more regularly, but if you want to see the sources, read this, what I'm reading from, go to thisweekinthetriangle.com. It's a Substack. You can put your email in if you want to support, or if you just want to get these free emails in your inbox each week. You can check out the sources and stay informed about what is happening in your local communities here in the Greater Triangle area of North Carolina. That's thisweekinthetriangle.com. So the article from this week is court documents reveal DOJ efforts to recover $1.4 million embezzled from Vance County. So if you followed the news over the past year, you might remember that Vance County Finance Director Catherine Bigelow, first in February of 2023, February of 2024. So February of 2024, Catherine Bigelow, the finance director in Vance County, was fired after it was discovered that she had lied about having a CPA, certified public accountant. So she had lied about her credentials. She was out. And at the time, they said, "Hey, we're not aware of any any budget errors, any inconsistencies. But when they actually did the audit, they found that she had done basically 11 unauthorized transfers out of the county's coffers, for a total of $1.4 million that she embezzled from the county. Um, and so this also involved transfers across state lines, as well as stealing from accounts that had been funded by the federal government. So the FBI ended up getting involved. They investigated, and when they confronted her about the stolen money, she ended up committing suicide. And since then, the Department of Justice has been working to recover some of this money that she stole. That was laundered through a corporation based in Apex Country Living Rentals. And most of that was then sent on to Bigelow's personal accounts. But it's really sort of astonishing how this came to happen, that she was able to steal this money, because basically when she was hired, they had a pretty normal safeguard in place for for anyone trusted with funds, which is dual approval required for transfers. So you can't just send money willy nilly. She had to approve it, and the assistant finance director had to approve it as well. But when the assistant finance director moved on to a new role, Bigelow received sole approval for transfers out of the county's accounts. And it was just 2 days later, according to the Department of Justice's timeline. Okay, 2 days after she had sole approval from the account, that she sent herself $43,000. Okay, so this, this wasn't, she didn't hold out very long from temptation. Once again, this is all according to the Department of Justice's filing, so take it with a grain of salt take it with a grain of salt, if you will. So we can see here these 11 transactions. They range up to, the biggest amount she embezzled in one transfer was nearly $400,000, and this went unnoticed from June 23rd, 2021 until December 19th, 2023. That was the last transaction until the next month, when auditors began asking her about her credentials. And it wasn't until her credential fraud was exposed that this 2+ years of embezzlement was uncovered. This is pretty crazy to me. I hope they get some new, better processes in there to stop people from stealing money. Hopefully they get that dual approval back in place, and hopefully, maybe they check their books once in a while to make sure no one is transferring $400,000 in unauthorized payments. That seems like a lot of money to me. Definitely pretty large. That's that is a whole lot of taxpayers' contributions that are just down the drain. And so I sent in an inquiry to the Vance County manager, Renee Perry, to ask, hey, the federal government has been filing to seize these assets, to seize these bank accounts. Has the county received any of that money back? And Perry responded to me, no, the federal government, the county has not received any funds, any proceeds from assets seized. None of that has been returned to the county. So it's been 9 months that they've been working to seize stuff. Will any of that be returned to the county? I don't know, but it has not been so far. So let's take a look at some of the stuff they seized. So one of the notes in in a federal court filing that was filed just this month was that they're currently negotiating with the members of the corporation that the funds were laundered through to receive back any of those funds that were still in the bank accounts of the money laundering corporation. So apparently they're still working on that. I imagine that negotiation would potentially involve the DOJ threatening them with charges for being involved with this embezzlement scheme. But in terms of the $1 million that was transferred to Bigelow's accounts, she bought some property with it that the DOJ has spent the last 9 months trying to seize, and that includes a 2024 Jeep Wrangler, 2024 Honda Pilot, 2023 pontoon boat, 2023 I believe it's an ATV, 2022 jet ski, and over $6,000 in a furniture order that she had made at I guess a furniture store and never picked up. But she made that order with embezzled funds. So the Department of Justice filed to seize that as well. And the most recent filing in terms of seizure was for a piece of property in Virginia that Bigelow purchased for approximately $100,000, and she put another $300,000 in improvements, septic, well drilling, and construction. So I'm assuming it didn't specifically say in the filing, but I'm assuming she bought an unimproved lot and built a house on it in Virginia. So that is the most recent property that the federal government has been trying to claw back in terms of this embezzlement. So that's all the stories for this week. Once again, you can find it at thisweekinthetriangle.com to follow along, get this news in your inbox, and or support my efforts to report on local news as an independent journalist here in the Greater Triangle area of North Carolina. Thank you.